So there's a number of buzzwords here on the floor in Barcelona in 2022, and two of those seem to permeate the event. Those are Open RAN and Metaverse Ready Networks. Joining us to shed some light on why these are most prevalent are Manish Singh. He's head of wireless ecosystem programs at Meta, that is formerly known as Facebook, by the way. Next to him is Caroline Chan, vice president and GM of the 5G infrastructure division, that at Intel. And last we have Mehran Hadipour. He's vice president of business development and tech alliances, that at Robin.io. And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, good to have you.
Really excited to be here in person.
Exactly. I was just took
now
words out of
looking
my
at you
mouth.
through Zoom link.
Exactly. We love Zoom, by the way, but not as much as in person. Okay. So good to have everybody in person again, and also good to be or to see you for the first time in person at an event like this, where everybody's sort of under the same roof. So it's great to have you. So I'm going to start with you, Manish, if you don't mind. Let's talk. And I mentioned this, of course, at the top of the segment. Let's talk about Open RAN. What's needed for Open RAN to sort of move forward, and is it ready for sort of prime time?
Yes, we're getting there. I think we already have a number of operators who have been doing active trials and deployments of Open RAN. The technology stack is coming together. The specification work that's happening in ORAN Alliance, that's definitely made significant progress. And within TIP, in the Telecom Infra project, we've been pretty busy bringing the ecosystem together, bringing the operators, working with them to get the requirements in, working with the technology providers and vendors to bring the different parts of the solution stack together, and doing a bunch of integration work, validation work in TIP community labs, and then supporting the trials that the operators are taking. And last year, November, we actually published, as part of the TIP blog, pretty detailed number of trials that are going, and it's currently, if you look at, it's around 40 plus trials across the globe that the operators are running. So yes, definitely tremendous progress, solid momentum, and right here in Barcelona, a number of operators already announcing their plans. So yes, really, really exciting times for Open.
Well, Caroline, certainly from Intel's perspective, Open RAN is ready for prime time. Agreed?
Oh yeah, I mean, okay, so we've been working on this for like 10 years.
Sure.
And so we started doing the Open RAN, started with the virtualized, we're providing FlexRAN as a reference software stack, and more importantly, we really target and gear our silicon roadmap to be able to provide the right acceleration, including inline acceleration, and 5G instruction set that we just announced. In fact, we just announced our Ice Lake with many, operators supporting that. We also announced our next generation silicon roadmap with many operators supporting that. And more, I think what Manish said is true. We need to get the ecosystem robust. We need to do integration. We need to do testing. But look at the world today. We do have Rakuten that has launched a virtualized Open RAN network in the most dense network, Japan. We have Verizon in New York City, and we have Dish that's about to launch, and then we also have Vodafone just announced, UK gonna do this. So I really think that we are getting very close from the trial to actual prime time deployment.
Mehran, from your perspective?
I think Open RAN is reasonably ready for production, given the fact that we actually have over 3 million subscribers running 5G Open RAN in production is a good proof point. It's not an exercise any longer. Some of the work that TIP is doing is quite interesting actually, because you're building different competencies and packaging of a solution. On the Roma project, we're building a RAB for TIP that integrates RAN and core functions and try to demonstrate on top of Intel technology and show that we can operate the entire stack on cloud native infrastructure. And I think you will see within a year that there will be a number of Open RAN projects in deployment stage globally across the time.
Manish, certainly a number of organizations, working groups working on ORAN or Open RAN. Is there overlap there? Is there a lot of overlap, or is there more collaboration there?
Yeah, TIP's working on Open RAN, ORAN Alliance is working on Open RAN, and that's great. I mean, we do need different organizations with different focus areas to continue to make advancements on this. ORAN Alliance, different working groups have made tremendous progress, specifically I would say on the specifications front. So that's very, very important, because you need to get, for open interfaces, you need to have open spec, and that work's being done very well in ORAN Alliance. TIP's focus has been very much to take those specs from ORAN Alliance plus VGPP and others, and then really drive the productization and commercialization of Open RAN. And towards that, there's been very good collaboration between TIP and ORAN Alliance. We have a liaison established, which enables TIP to leverage the specifications work. And then to give you another example, like tests and validation, that's very important. Again, when you disaggregate, you open the ecosystem, then you need to bring the pieces together, and that should not take a big integration exercise. So how do we solve for that? TIP community labs have been a great place where a lot of this work has been happening. And also in collaboration with ORAN Alliance, to share with you, there have been joint Plugfests that TIP and ORAN Alliance have done together. So again, I think great collaboration, both the organizations focusing on different parts, and both needed to really move the industry forward.
Overlap, collaboration as far as Open RAN?
Definitely collaboration. This, I could say that having served on the TIP board for quite a few years, we really come into this very comfortable place for the two organizations. Typically take on this dual, right? We integrate, we test, we validate, versus, when ORAN Alliance really starts defining the specs. And I think the two organizations really started gelling really well together.
Mary, anything to add to that?
Well, I think the benefit I see in a number of these alliance organizations is that more than just setting standards and APIs, is actually interchange of ideas and collaboration. The infrastructure readiness, being able to understand the deployment models, those are all benefits we see as participating in both Open RAN Alliance and TIP and many other standards committees. So I think they're definitely beneficial. I don't think there's a lot of overlap. They have different missions very often, but we're glad to be part of them. I think they're adding value to the whole progress on RAN.
Yeah, look, Open RAN is meant to be cloud native. So that is a lot of learnings that traditionally the telco lacks. So it takes somebody like TIP, who has a lot of the cloud ingredients and heritage, really come in, and somebody like Rob and I really come in and really facilitate this integration of the cloud and the telco network. And I think that is both the challenge and opportunity of Open RAN, is to bring that cloud nativeness into it. So the network is more than just connectivity. It does a lot more than that. Robert does a lot of that, in this.
Yeah, and if I may just quickly add to Caroline's point, within TIP, the sharing is one of the key principles that TIP enables. And to give you examples, like for example, Vodafone did a trial in Turkey. This was one of the first early Open RAN trials. And there were a lot of learnings out of that, which Vodafone very publicly shared with the TIP community. And that's the value of bringing those learnings back into the community, sharing with the community. And that really helps all the technology providers to understand where the problems are, and also for other operators to understand how things are maturing, because again, taking that example, they even shared how the network was performing, what KPIs they were able to achieve. So it's really that, that enablement TIP as a platform provides to the community and driving that efforts forward.
Before I was going to shift actually to a whole different topic, but before I do, I wanted to ask Naron a question. So moving towards Open RAN, specifically for service providers and telcos and operators, it's a technology shift, as Caroline mentioned, but it's certainly also a culture shift, as she also alluded to as well. I wanted to get your perspective on that.
That's a great, interesting observation.
Is it of equal importance, by the way?
Quite a bit. That's the scale of 5G and the deployment complexities added to the fact that now we're talking about open standards, x86 platform that are enabled for a specific use case, and you're looking at a very new deployment models. And if you have to have automation built into the culture and to the infrastructure, and deployment models that were very different from what the past used to be. Like you got a box from the top 3, it was already pre-configured, somebody raised it up to the antenna and you were done. The model is different. Now we have x86 platform hosting, device diversified and software stack that is changing daily. Orchestration, automation, lifecycle management, all those things have to be automated. All those learnings of DevOps like learnings applied to the telco deployment is brand new cultural shift, right? The guys who used to do operations are hardware support people. Now you're having DevOps people managing your telco stack. Brand new model, but this is actually part of the complexity of getting to a diversification of the stack and softwareization of the stack. But everybody is adopting it, right? Is no longer an exercise, right? You see significant DevOps focus in the way the telco functions are being deployed. Telco functions are no more than complex applications, right? How you deploy them, how to manage their lifecycle has to be built in the model you support them.
Yeah, and this will become even more important as we talk about private networks. You're asking an enterprise to deploy something like that, it needs to be cloud native, it needs to be easy, it needs to be automated, even more so than public network today.
They even have less resources than
less resources and automation, zero touch.
Has to be there.
Has to be built in.
So, just one additional input on this. One of the things we do look at also is how do you make Open RAN easy to consume for the operators? And so to your point, it's very important that we also start to understand what are some of the, call them the golden configs for the Open RAN. So that's one of the other work that happens in the TIP Community Lab, is bring the ecosystems together, develop the blueprints, validate them, badge them, and again share that with the larger operator community. So that's, but to your point, that's very, very important that we start to do that integration work and develop these validated blueprints.
The other aspect that has to change, previously when people talked about automation, they looked at service automation. Automation now has to extend to all the way to bare metal. Somebody plugs in a box with nothing on it. At that point, it has to be installed, managed, and its entire lifecycle operations, operating system, kernel upgrade, BIOS changes. You can't be touching that. If you think about touching, somebody actually have to do something to the boxes. There's not enough people in the company to do that, right? So orchestration has to extend all the way to bare metal for this to work, for the Open RAN to work. So that's why metal to service orchestration is the new concept of orchestration. We're not talking about just service management here.
I want to switch gears to another buzzword that we're hearing on the floor, particularly at this event, the Metaverse. Certainly there's a number of issues tangential to that term, but a Metaverse-ready network is one of those. Manish, I wanted to start with you. What does that mean? I think a lot of us know what the Metaverse is, so I guess we can talk about that, but what is a Metaverse-ready network?
Metaverse-ready networks, basically networks that can enable Metaverse, right? So Metaverse brings presence, brings, very deep interactions, immersive interactions, and a new way for communication, right? However, it also brings certain new requirements with them, and in particular, I'll say lower latency, symmetrical bandwidth, and more, and that is what we need to solve for as a industry, as a community, in a collaborative way to enable Metaverse.
So where does the conversation around the Metaverse network or Ready Network evolve to? So let's say a year from now, what are we talking about?
Oh, we're talking about a number of things, like to lower the latency. What does that mean? Is there more role for edge to play? Is there even no role for breakouts to happen, local breakouts to happen? How do you measure quality of experience in Metaverse? So we've done quality of experience in voice, video, etc. Going forward, we need to define the framework for what quality of experience is going to be. And to give you an example, TIP today is hosting a Birds of Feather along with Telefonica to really bring the industry together to start these conversations. What does it mean to build these quality of experience frameworks? And the last thing I'll also just say is, the networks need to become more application aware, and the applications need to become more network aware, because network conditions can change at a much lower granularity. And to again enable metaverse at scale, these are things that will be required, and that's what Metaverse Ready Networks are. And for more details, lastly, I'll say the Meta Connectivity team published a really detailed blog around this as part of Mobile World Congress. And anyone who wants to know more, I'll definitely point them to that blog.
I think the application aware aspect, going both ways, is really interesting. We should probably talk more about that at a later session. Maybe this time next year we'll have some rubber meets the road conversations about that. From Intel's perspective, what's your take on the Metaverse or the Metaverse Ready Network? Anything to add?
We have had a discussion with Manish and his team around making the Open RAN network Metaverse ready, which is essentially what he summarized: low latency, high capacity, and also the making the application aware and network aware application. What we have done is, for example, our layer 1 data comes in, we actually can make that available through API. That there's a lot of inferencing learning that can happen, understanding what is happening in the bottom, in the most demanding physical layer, and then you can learn that, understand how the application perform and behave under certain RF conditions. Things like that is one of the things you could make Metaverse Ready Network. But most importantly, we make sure that our roadmap, our silicon roadmap, can manage that type of a capacity and low latency in a very power efficient way, including some inline accelerator we brought in, adding on die and adding some of the additional instruction set just for this kind of 5G. So many things are happening because we do project that the network is going to be able to handle what you just described. I mean, that's just the path the network will take.
Yeah.
So, Meron, in your opinion, what needs to happen to accelerate, to catapult the Metaverse Ready Network?
I think the things that would help accelerate it significantly is new and interesting use cases. Think about intelligent transportation, or location-aware services, or medical use cases, right? Imagine you walk into the bus station, the bus already knows your destination. Depending on number of people standing, the bus gets rerouted to the maximized throughput of the bus, for example. Or you go to the doctor, he's on your screen, he's getting all your vitals automatically. You don't have to move anywhere. If you provide the low latency networks and the infrastructure to support it, all these use cases would happen. And when the use cases happen, that's where the revolution happens, right? That's when all these things become reality. And Facebook realizes that. You guys are all about connectivity, right? You want to connect people, and this is the way to connect people. It removes boundaries, removes nations, it brings people together. The social value, the efficiency value of the infrastructure, network would drive that. It's quite an exciting thing, in my view.
So, direct correlation between Open RAN and Metaverse Ready Networks, is that fair to say?
Well, yes. I mean, partly, because as I said, Metaverse has certain things that will require low latency, symmetrical bandwidth, I would argue, edge capabilities. Open RAN starts to become a key building block over time, because it does, through that whole hardware software disaggregation, makes the underlying infrastructure more programmable. So there are a lot of very intelligent things that you could do in terms of managing the experiences. And also it makes the whole infrastructure more software defined, which drives more innovation, which will be required to again enable Metaverse at scale. So it's both those things. It's the disaggregation. It starts to put those basic pieces in place, but then, to be clear, there's a lot of work the industry as a whole has to do to enable Metaverse. And I just gave quality of experience as an example, but there's a whole more body of work. But yes, Open RAN puts those basic building blocks in place.
Yeah, especially around, I just picked up one word that we've been driving Open RAN is programmability and software defined. And this is, I think, it has been a foundation of Metaverse network. What's Metaverse network, Ready Network? You have to attract developers. You have to be able to program because of the continuous evolution of Metaverse application. So that sort of things really requires programmability, requires software defined, and to be the ability to attract developers that can write applications on the Open RAN Metaverse Ready Network as if they were writing something for Android or for iOS. I think those are really key elements that we as an Open RAN community need to focusing on to make this Metaverse ready.
It makes sense that those are the buzzwords or keywords that you're hearing on the floor here in Barcelona now that we've had sort of a little bit of a shedding of the spotlight on these two terms, so it makes a lot more sense to me at least now. So Meron, again, this is sort of our second session back-to-back that we've had you on, so we appreciate your time and giving us your insight.
Enjoyed it quite a bit, thank you.
Congratulations on the news, by the way, yesterday with Rakuten Symphony.
Quite exciting being part of Symphony. I think there's a lot of synergy, and we are kind of excited about the future.
Absolutely, and we'll have Rakuten Symphony and Robin and some other folks right in this room tomorrow to talk about that, so looking forward to that. Caroline Chan, always a fixture, if I may use that word, if that's okay, on our programs. You've been extremely supportive of NMG over the years, so we appreciate you
Love
continuing.
seeing you face to face.
And thanks for the gift, by the way. I got snacks, or sweets rather. Sweets. Yeah. Manish, it's been a while. You've changed course as far as shifting over to Meta, again, formerly known as Facebook, for those that don't know that. So it's got to be super exciting, I can only imagine. I guess the sky's the limit there, right?
It's definitely exciting. I think we've been working pretty much focused on Open RAN and enabling that, and Metaverse, and getting from the connectivity side, Metaverse Ready Networks. That really is an exciting challenge. So definitely excited about that, and great to see everyone in person. This is my first event post-COVID, so I'm really happy to be back and seeing you and everyone in person.
Well, I'm sure we'll see each other very soon, and thanks for your time again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.